Hello everyone and welcome to my corner of the world. Today I have a cute little project to share, and it's a box here with note cards, and I'm featuring the new Countryside Inn decorative paper pack, I think it is. And so the box holds 4 of our note cards with envelopes, and I think they make a really lovely gift. Or if you're into craft fairs, I think it would make a nice item to sell on your craft store. So let's make a little start on our cards. So as I said, I'm using the note cards that are available in the Stampin' Up catalogue, and you get 20 of these with envelopes, and I think it's for $8 US, and it's a really good good value, and I use them quite a lot. I'm also using the Countryside Inn decorative paper pack, and this is some papers that feature blues like Balmy Blue, Night of Navy and Misty Moonlight, and they really are lovely papers, and I'll show you some of the others in a minute. So this is cute. I think this would make a lovely baby card, particularly for a boy, and then with the stripes on the back, it will make a nice sort of other card for maybe a fella or even a young person. So the paper is very, very usable. So all I'm going to do is simply fold my card along the score line that it comes with, and I've got a piece of card, a piece of the decorative paper that just gives me about 1/8 of an inch border all the way around. So I believe, let's just measure this up. This is 4 3/4 by 3 1/4, and then I've got a strip that is 4 3/4 by 3/4 of an inch, and I want to kind of just give a little bit of extra sort of color texture by putting a strip on the reverse side there. Now I have used my paper trimmer, and you might just see, if you look real carefully, that there is a bit of an edge to it that's sort of folded or downwards. So all I'm going to do is to just stroke my bone folder across that, and that smooths out the paper. It's just the way that the trimmer, when you push the blade into the paper, it just makes the very, very edges sort of curve in slightly. So I'm just going to add a little liquid adhesive. You can use whatever adhesive you like. I find that I prefer to use the liquid, and then I'm just simply going to attach this to the outside of my card, just double checking to make sure that I've got my bunnies the right way around. Okay, so it's as straightforward as that, as for actually pulling the card together. And now we're going to do some decorative work on it. So when I shared with you my other cards, you can see I put a monogram on these ones, and I used the stamp set called Classic Letters, And this, as you can see, has got the entire alphabet plus some things like the ampersand, and then I think this is used in the German language. I have a feeling that that is kind of the equivalent of a double S, but I'm sure somebody will correct me if I'm wrong. And also it's got some nice little sort of leafy bits in there as well. As you can see, there's actually 59 pieces in this stamp set. And to make it easy to ensure that you've got all the pieces, they're on the inside of the cover. And what I usually do is I leave them in the clear film until I use them, and then I pop them in the back in the case like that. It's just the way I work. But I can tell if anything's missing, because if I lay that there like that, I can see instantly if there's something missing. Oh, and looks like that eye has got turned around. So I'm just going to turn it there, pop it in there, so I don't worry about, oh, I can't find the eye. So that's how I deal with my photopolymers. As I say, I leave them in the cellophane until I use them, and then I pop them in the case. Now, what if you don't have any letters, or that you don't want to put a monogram? So I'm going to just use this opportunity to share a different approach. Now, one of the die sets that I'm using is called the Timeless Arrangement dies, and that is what I'm using to put this really pretty little bundle of sort of leafy type things on the side. And I have used this before in videos, and I will share a few hints and tips with you about that. Now, because I was using that, I thought, well, why don't I look at the stamp set that coordinates with it, which in the main is some lovely sayings, some nice greetings, but it's also got some really cute little sort of floral and leafy images down here. And I thought, well, maybe I could use those in place of a monogram, just to give you another idea of what you could do with the this sort of center panel here. So I've also got my Stylish Shapes dies. These dies have got squares, circles and banners, and they've got a lovely stitched edge, and they look very impressive. If I show you this one that I'd already done, can you see all the lovely stitching around there? And it really finishes it off beautifully. So I cut out some squares in balmy blue and in the basic white, and I used I think it's what would be the second and the third square from the smallest in here. So I already did that, and I've got the pieces here. Let's pop that out the way. And I'm simply going to use some Misty Moonlight ink to just stamp a couple of images on here. So I'm going to start with, let me see, I'm going to start with this little, it's like a little flower on a stem. And I'm going to go from the corners, from a corner out to the side, like that. And then I've got this other little one, which is kind of, well, it reminds me of berries. just stem with berries. And I'm just going to bring that down like that on that piece. And I think it looks a weeny bit empty, so I'm going to use my blender pen to just pull some of the blue ink up and just give this a little bit of presence. See, it's not too much. I have missed a little bit of ink out there. I got a little bit of ink missing there, but I don't think it's going to matter very much. So can you see it just brings a tiny bit of the colour to fill in. Then I'm just going to use some adhesive to stick these two pieces together. And then it'll go on my card. Before I do that though, I need to work out my little bunch of sort of leafy bits here. Now the die set that I mentioned, the Timeless Arrangements die set, I'm trying to have it at an angle so it doesn't reflect off the light here and blind you. It has a number of these types of dies where it has leaves here that are kind of joined together, and they've got this little piece here, this like a little block of card that it's attached to. Now the purpose of this is that you can cut your pieces, and they're sort of artfully arranged for you, so you don't have to sort of try tweaking and pushing it in to see what looks good. So what I did ahead of time is I cut one of each in one in balmy blue and one in white. In fact, I cut two of each because there's 4 cards, and that'll make a bit more sense in a minute. And I'm going to layer these two pieces together, and it doesn't matter whether you put the blue on the white or the white on the blue. It doesn't matter one tiny little bit. You'll still get the same very pretty dainty effect. So I'm going to layer these two pieces so that those strips of card are lined up there. Can you see there? They're lined up, but these are sort of all sort of floating free. And you can see what I meant about how the leaves have been positioned so that they are kind of offset, and they're more of a display than a stack. So I'm going to pop those away so I don't lose them. And then I'm going to cut them in half, this piece in half, just along here. And so as I say, I cut 2 blue and 2 white, and I stuck the blue and the whites together. And then by cutting them in half, I get 4 little bunches of leaves. Right. And now I've got to decide where I want to put my little diamond. It could be in the center, it could be to the left, to the right, whatever works for you. I've managed to get some ink there, and I'm careful I don't get it all on my work. However, you have to kind of make a decision at this point to decide where it is that you're going to put your little leafy piece, because I like to line mine up, if you like, to the back of the card like this, the back of my little plaque piece. But I've got to make sure that when I lay it down, it doesn't go outside the footprint of the card. Now, if I wanted to bring this down a little bit more, I can actually trim off that piece there, like that. And then I can, if I attach that to there, then let's see, get that sent, and let's see where we want it to go. So can you see now it's not as close to the edge of the card as it was. If I wanted to bring it down even further, I could do that like that, and then it's a little bit more on the white. Now you could say, well, could I do it this on this side? Yeah, I could do it on that side. That works perfectly on that side. But if I have my diamond over here, it's not going to work over here because it's going to go over the edge of the card. So it's just a case now of deciding, well, where shall I put it? Shall I put it on that corner or on that corner? So you just play with it until you got a position that you like. And that's not going to work. But that will. That will. So you'll put some adhesive on the back here and attach it to the back of your centerpiece there. And as you can see, I'm just lining everything up so that it doesn't appear and show like that. Now we're going to pop it down permanently with some dimensionals. I managed to pull the backing off there. So I'm using my edge pieces because they're just as sticky as the pieces in the middle and we don't want to waste them. I think I'm just going to put another piece on here and then have the 4 pieces off the back. And I'm going to just line it up so my points are sort of center to my little banner here, and there I've got my card. And I've also want to put a lovely iridescent pearl on there, just one, don't want to overload it too much. So there's my card. I did go ahead and make the others up. So you can see I've got one here that has got those pieces to the right. This one here is up there. And my last one here, I just need to work out what I'm going to do. I'm going to snip that extra piece off like that. And if it goes like that, it's going to go outside the footprint of the card. We don't want that. I could pop it over here. I think I will. I'm going to pop it in that corner. And then back to the dimensionals. Looks like I've finished that one off. Like that. So you just choose which corner you'd like it to go on, just depending on where, or just making sure that you don't have your leafy bits hanging over the edge of your card, because they get all smooshed and messed up going in and out of the envelope. So that's why we do that. So I think I'll put this one over here like that. And now we've got our 4 cards and we have our 4 envelopes here. And so you can see that making them with a little floral display or with a monogram, they work exactly the same and look just as effective. So now we need to do our box to put our lovely set of cards in. And I'm going to start that with a piece of Misty Moonlight. Now, I could have chosen any of the colours in the paper. We've got Misty Moonlight, Balmy Blue and Night of Navy, and I could have chosen any of them, but I do like Misty Moonlight. It's one of the colours that was an in colour a few years ago. It retired, but it came back into the core colour family back at the beginning of May. So this is 10 3/4 by 6 3/4, and I've scored it here at 3/4 of an inch from either side there, and then I've scored it at 3 3/4, 7 1/2 and 8 1/4. Now the first thing I'm going to do is to put in my folds, and I'm going to use my bone folder to make sure I've got good crisp folds. You may have heard me say on many occasions, the secret to a good box is nice crisp folds, because then you're basically telling the card exactly what you want it to do. And it's not left up to its own devices deciding what it's going to do. So if you look closely, there is an end, this side here, where your 3-inch score line is. And if you look at the other end, there's a narrower panel, and that one is 2 1/2. So the 3-inch panel is going to be the flap of your box. That's this flap of your box here. So I recommend that you keep that to the top, and then you'll always remember that that is going to be the top of your box. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut some notches, and if you've watched me make some tabs, and if you've watched me make boxes before, you'll be familiar. And I'm just cutting, if you like, to this side of the score line, so I lose the score line when I assemble my box. And then I put a couple of little wedges in, and that helps when we put the box together. It takes some of the bulk out, and again it makes for a neater box altogether. So you don't need to make a huge wedge. So that's our starting point. Now the next thing we're going to do is to create the top. So if you look here, you can see that these pieces here are the sides of the box. And so when we make the top and the lid, we do not need these pieces. So we're going to trim those out. From the second score line. So there's the first score line, here's the second score line. So we're going to trim them out. We don't need any notches on these parts. No, we don't need any notches at all, because we want everything to be sort of square. So that's one, and then we're going to take this piece here and we're going to cut down that score line. Right, then we have our box. Let's get rid of these bits. So this is basically going to go like this, and then our lid is going to come down like that. We're going to do a bit of fancy punching on the flap to give it a little bit of elegance, extra elegance. If you can see, let me put this underneath and you'll be able to see how we've got that extra little bit of elegance there. I've got my punch. I keep forgetting what it's called. Trio, best trio, something like that. Anyway, it's got this lovely little design here to take corners off. And I have used this in my videos before, and I have explained that you need to make sure that you follow a sequence. Now with these punches, you can see that your cardstock is going to go between these two pieces here. And with this particular part of the punch, you need to just put your card in the same way each time. So I'm going to put mine in from the left, and I'm going to start with the outside of the box uppermost. And I'm going to put that in here and punch. And you can see that I have got the rounded bit here and the scoopy bit here. Now, in order to make it a pair, I've got to flip this over and I've got to put it in exactly the same direction. I know that there's a tendency to sort of do it like that, but you must put it in the same direction. And if you look carefully, I've got my nice scoopy bits and my roundy bits there. Now I've got some decorative paper, and it's from the same Countryside Inn pack. And this is 5 inches. It's actually a 5-inch square. So you can get 4 of these out of a 12 by 12 sheet. And I've cut one piece at 2 3/4 and the other piece at 2 1/4. So the smaller piece is going to go here on what will be the front part of the box. And the larger piece is going to go here, which is my flap. And you'll need to just double check to make sure your paper, if your paper has got a direction, and make sure you put it in the right way. This has a slight direction, but it's not ever so obvious. So what I'm going to do is lay this here, and I know that I need to have these bottom 2 corners, the punched ones. So I'm going to go in and I make sure I'm going from the same side of the punch. And so that will line up there. And then I'm going to flip it over, same side as the punch. And then all my curves and scoops match up. So I know I took quite a bit of time to explain that, but if you don't know, then you might be disappointed with how your card, your box finishes off. So we're just going to go ahead and pop some adhesive and get that piece down. And then this is my bottom piece here. There we go. All right. So it's just easier to put the paper on while everything is flat. So to assemble, we're going to add some double-sided tape. I always use double-sided tape for boxes. The liquid glue would be strong enough, however, it takes a little bit of extra time to dry. And then I'm going to put some double-sided tape on this part of one of my flaps. I'm just going to put a couple of just to make sure that it's well and truly stuck down. Now, normally when I do a box, I like to have the folds to the front. And I'll explain what I mean by that. So when I make my boxes, usually, I like to have it so that my folds are to the front of the box and the cut edge is toward the back. But if I did that, we would have this piece, this sort of step, which doesn't look terribly attractive. So for this box, I'm going to make sure that I tuck the front the front pieces in like that, so that it's nice and smooth on the ends. And we're going to start by tucking the flaps in first. Right, so I'm going to bring this piece round and I'm going to tuck it inside the short flap here. Let me see. And I'm just going to line up to make sure my fold and my cut edge is looking good. And then we're going to go and do the same on the other side. Like that. And to make sure that it's really firmly stuck down, I'm going to use my bone folder like that. And now we can do the side pieces. So I always do take the tape off one at a time, because then I'm not wrangling with all that adhesive. So I'm just going to tuck that in and bring that round, lining up my cut edge with my folds. And then I'm just going to go in with my bone folder and give that a good old burnish. And then the other side. Now, the other reason that I put the adhesive on this piece is because I know how much or how far the adhesive needs to go. It just goes the length here. If I was putting it on this side, I would have to sort of make a mark and guess possibly how far it needed to go, so I didn't get too much adhesive where it wasn't needed. So again, we're just going to make sure everything is square and put that down. And there. So there we have our lovely box. Not quite finished though, because we are going to put a little magnet on it. So I'm going to start by putting a block, one of my clear blocks in there. What that does, that will give me something firm to push onto. And I have got some magnets. And before anybody asks, I get them from Amazon. And I've got some tinsy wincy ones and some slightly larger ones. And so because I'm doing this on camera, I'm going to use the slightly larger ones so as you can see. So I've got two. I've taken two off. And the first thing I'm going to do is get the glue dot out, and I'm going to put a glue dot on my inside flap. And I'm going to kind of put it as centered and probably about quarter, maybe 3/8 of an inch down. And then I'm going to get my magnet and I'm going to put it, both magnets here. We've got both magnets, and I'm going to put them both on together. And then I'm going to get another glue dot and I'm going to pop it on the top of the second magnet like that. And I'm just scooping in the edges of the glue dot a tiny bit, just so it doesn't go in the wrong place. Then I'm going to bring my flap over and I'm going to make sure everything is squared up, that it's square to the sides like this, and then I'm going to press hard, and that's pushing that glue dot onto the card. Now, by stacking your two magnets, it means that you're not having to struggle about, okay, well, I've put one under here, how do I know how to put one down here? The magnets will do it for you. So there we go. And it works lovely. Nice little catch. All right, so we can go ahead and put our pretty cards inside. Like that. And I've got one little flourish. Now, you've heard me talk about the Go-To Greeting stamp set, which I love. And it has a stamp that says just a note. How perfect for a note card. So I did a little bit of prep. I have used one of the banners from the same Stylish Shapes dies, these banners here, and I've just cut out, stamped on a bit of basic white, cut out, and we're going to put a couple of dimensionals down there when I can remember where I put them, which at the moment, what did I do with them? Never mind. Okay, so we're going to pop one and then there, and just pop it on there. And maybe, just because you know me, I love my bling, we're going to put a couple of pearls on there. And we have the most perfect little gift. Lovely hostess gift. If you, or as I say, maybe for a craft fair. Well, I do hope you've enjoyed this box. Now, the dimensions and everything will be in a link below this video, and it will take you to the dimensions on my blog. If you've enjoyed the video, perhaps you'll go ahead, give me a thumbs up. If you don't already subscribe, perhaps you'll do that, and maybe you'll go ahead and share it with your friends. So thank you very much for joining me today. Bye bye for now.